Politics. We're here live with Owen Carver, candidate for Nevada State Assembly District number 13. I'm sorry, District number 2. I have 13 in my head for some reason. That's because I live in that district. But Mr. Carver, could you tell us a little bit about you?
Yeah, happy to. So I'm originally from Iowa. I was born and raised there.
A little bit.
Yeah. Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay.
Iowa?
Yeah, originally from Iowa, born and raised in eastern Iowa.
Okay.
And went to public high school there. Went to college in Oregon at a small liberal arts school. After that, moved to San Francisco, had some family in the area. Got hired with Zappos.com in 2004.
Oh, wow.
And 3 months after being hired, or after working there,
You try to take over?
They moved here to Vegas, and I moved with them.
Oh, okay.
And that's what brought me here.
So you're part of Tony Hsieh's group?
I was. I left in 2007 and started my own web company after going to CSN for a year, and have been running that and working as a community organizer too, trying to make a difference and make Nevada a better place for everybody.
So there's an incumbent in your race, right?
Yep, that's right.
Why you want to run against that incumbent?
That's a good question. So, me wanting to run wasn't necessarily because...
And who's the incumbent, by the way?
The incumbent is John Hambrick. He's the Speaker for the House Majority in the Assembly for the state of
That's
Nevada.
That's a tall order, huh?
That's what I've heard. It's not everyone wants to run against an incumbent who has been there for 8 years, who's the Speaker for the House.
I don't think he's been there that long.
Since he was elected in 2008.
Yeah. It's been that long?
It's just
Holy crap!
He may not have been the Speaker of the House that long.
No, he wasn't.
Yeah, but he's been in office for I think 8 years now. Okay. Yeah, so he's got, I think, 2 more terms left.
Well, if you take him out, then he won't have no more terms.
Yeah, no, we're sure that's the case. So me wanting to run really didn't have anything to do with John Hambrick, per se. Right. What I saw was, when I did look at the question of, would I want to run, which there was a lot, before that in the process of thinking, would I want to run for politics in general. I saw that no Democrat had ran in the last 2 elections, and it seemed like there might be an opportunity there, and I talked with a lot of different people who had some experience in politics to figure out, is this a crazy thing? Is it possible to win in a district that has a 6% lead for the other party?
You're kind of opposite of Melanie there.
Opposite on, because she's also going against an incumbent.
An incumbent in a highly D area, and you going in the highly R area.
Right.
And plus, you probably don't have no graffiti in your area, huh?
Not that I've seen, at least in that district. Most of it's a lot of new development too.
Yeah.
And there's no industrial. There's not
Summerlin area, right?
Yeah, it's Summerlin. It's Red Rock Casino's kind of smack in the middle of the district. It's like a 6-mile radius around there. The north edge is Summerlin Parkway.
Okay.
And the south edge is where the 215 meets Town Center.
Right.
And then the west is sort of like the edge of the main development, and the east side is like Rampart, Fort Apache.
Right. Oh, that's a nice area.
Yeah, it is.
I wouldn't go to Melanie's area. Might get shot over there.
So back when I was growing up, we used to ride our dirt bikes up there.
You
can't do that anymore.
Piss off the residents now. Go ahead, Mr. Carter.
Sure. So, when I decided to run, it was because I discussed with some good friends of mine who have political experience after analyzing the numbers of past campaigns and determining that, because of a combination of factors, there's a good possibility of overcoming that difference in the district to be able to win.
Okay, well, let me ask you the same question I asked Ms. Howard. How do you feel about nepotism on the bench?
We could look at, for example, our presidential election, for example, as a way of looking at, let's say Bill Clinton was the president, and now his wife is running as the president.
That's a little different because you got one giving a high five, one is going in, one is coming out. I'm talking about their both staying there.
Right, right. So, again, I guess what I was sort of highlighting is that when you have anyone in office in a position of power, what is going to happen is that the people that person knows very closely are going to have advantages over the average person in being able to know what does it take to actually get into that position. And that's going to mean that, they'll know all of their donor contacts, all of their political advisors, and all of those factors add up to creating, something that's not necessarily fair ground in terms of, the average person being able to run and win against that person.
And this is how I see it too. If you got a husband and wife on the bench, you're not running against just one judge. You're running against two judges now.
Right.
And that's what I've been seeing.
Yeah, so I mean,
and that's unfair to anybody else that's running against that person.
It creates an advantage for the people who are close to that person in that power in that position. And the question of what would we do about that to create a more democratic process is really the we would want to answer. And there's a lot of things to consider in deciding what would you do to try to make a more fair and democratic process for someone to get into a position of power and leadership.
So would you be, if you were to become an assembly person, would you be interested in drafting up a BDR to say that there is no immediate family members on the same bench? Would you do something like that? And when I say immediate family members, that includes brother, sister, mother, daughter.
Nuclear family.
Right.
So, I mean, doing that would definitely, prevent that, let's say, a possible, unfair advantage for someone to get into position of leadership. But, that same scenario could still happen with someone, let's say, who has a best friend, who's doing that. So
I think best friend's a little bit different. But let me go a little bit one more because I love this topic.
Sure.
Because in the private sector, nepotism is not allowed. A lot of these private businesses, nepotism is just not allowed. Why is it allowed in the government sector?
Right.
Or why do we, the people, allow it to go on?
Right.
That will be more my question.
Well, I think, I would say from a private industry standpoint, there might just be a need to try to eliminate liability. When you're working in a private company, the goal is not to have necessarily a democratic institution, but an institution that has more security and stability to maintain profitability. And that means avoiding situations that might become a can of worms.
Libelous.
That could be libelous and make that company lose a lot of time and energy. And so if from that private business perspective, it's that those policies are in place to make it easier to avoid those situations. In a democratic government context, it's a little bit different because we're trying to be, let's say, fair for everyone. We're trying to create equal opportunity. So let's say, for example, I happen to be born with a father who was in public office, which wasn't the case for me, but for someone else, having a policy in place like that might prevent someone from being able to, grow up saying, like, I want to do what my father does.
Let me just stop you right there.
Yeah, sure.
I'm not saying that one family member can't become an assembly person and another family member run for Congress.
Sure.
I'm saying you have the same people, Clark County District Court bench.
Yeah.
You have the same people on the same bench, and they're both going to be making ordinance and policy changes. They're going to vote on stuff at the same time for the RJC. Right. The same bench, not one over here and one down there. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that they're at the same place at the same time. That's what I'm saying.
So, I mean, that's a different question. I haven't thought about that specific scenario before. I can imagine that there could be conflicts of interest that can emerge from that, in several different scenarios. But I think kind of the root question is to say, are those people elected because of a democratic process, or are those people in the position that they're in because of something that's less democratic and less transparent? And hopefully, if those people were elected through a democratic process, the whole point of that is that it's because the people believe that person would be serving well in their interests and not doing something like what you're saying where, it might be just them with their own personal interests instead of serving the people. So those would be the things that I would take into consideration when trying to make some kind of judgment like that. But, offhand, maybe I don't, I'd want to look at situations where in the past, has that occurred? And if so, what exactly was the context of those situations? Yeah.
Hey, Owen, I believe is this the first time that John Hambrick's been opposed, or has it been opposed once before?
He was opposed, I believe, in the previous election by someone named A.J. Manberg, who I think ran as an IAP, Independent American Party, and that I read some articles that said that the reason why A.J. had run was in response to John Hambrick going against his promise to hold the line on budget and tax increases, which he, I guess, broke when he agreed with Brian Sandoval's tax increase.
Yeah, and there was a rumor that John actually wanted an IAP to run, so that the Democrats wouldn't run against him.
I heard the same rumor too.
Yeah. Well, the reason why I'm asking is, so when you were making this decision and deciding whether you wanted to run or not, did you reach out to some of John Hambrick's opponents that aren't necessarily, they're not Democrat? I mean, I'm talking specifically like Chuck Muth, obviously very upset with John Hambrick for breaking his taxpayer pledge. Has he contacted you at all to offer help in your race? Because that is something that I could probably see Chuck Muth doing.
So, no, I haven't spoken with him. I'm not acquainted with Chuck. And I haven't spoken actually or met John Hambrick before either. That was something that actually came to mind when I was, before the filing period, when I was still not 100% certain that I was going to run. I wanted to, and that was part of just the analysis of whether or not it'd be possible for me to win. Yeah. But I didn't reach out to those people, and they hadn't reached out to me, at least, since I filed to run as a candidate. So, so I'm not sure.
So one thing that I do know that makes John a very formidable opponent, not only 100% name recognition, honestly, in some of this, but John is, since he's retired, he's a very hard worker. I mean, he will walk. I guarantee he's going to walk that entire district. Him and Nancy will be walking every single day, except for Sunday, obviously. What's your strategy? Do you have people helping you walk? Because if you don't walk that district, it's going to be extremely tough.
Right. Yeah, and I agree with that. I think, and then I've heard a lot of people say, when you walk, you win. Touching people, meeting them in person, going to their homes is the most important thing you can do. And it also, as a candidate, just helps you get to know better the people in your neighborhood. It's easy to live in a neighborhood and not know your next door neighbor. So during the primaries, I actually didn't expect to have any opponents. I filed, I hadn't seen anyone else file as Democrat in the previous two elections, so I had no reason to believe that a Democrat would, dare to jump in. And after I filed, there was actually 3 people who filed to run against me, right. Which was surprising. Maybe I just made them hopeful to, see something was possible. So, but I did win, and I won by a very close margin. It was 17 votes. And the second place person was one of my neighbors, Ron Nelson. He lives a few houses down in my neighborhood, and is my precinct captain actually too. Right. Yeah, it's an interesting story. It is. I actually told him I was going to run during the caucuses, and he was like, "Yeah, it's a good idea. You should do that." So I did. I was like, "Okay, cool." Everyone's saying it's a good idea. But the reason why I won is because I have a lot of people in town that I know because of work that I've done for the community as a community organizer in helping schools, working in the tech community, and helping charities through Code for Charity events that I set up. And it's because of that I was able to reach out to friends and family and just get people to say, yeah, I believe in supporting you, and had a lot of friends come to volunteer, knocking on doors. I had relatives and friends from out of state phone banking for me, and with a relatively small budget of about $15,000, was able to edge out a win. And I don't know if that's necessarily because my opponent wasn't working very hard. I did see him getting out and about, so I knew it was going to be tough. And when the election came, I kind of felt it'd be a coin toss. But I have no doubts about the challenge that I face in, for one, overcoming the natural deficit of voter registration in my district for Democrats to Republicans, and then also over additional resources that Hambrick puts in. And so I know that we're going to have a very strong walking volunteer force. I don't know if that's going to have to involve, paying staff to do that as well. But we're going to try to do everything we can with the resources available and support that we can get to do it.
Yeah, because honestly, I would try to, I wouldn't just walk Democrats and independents. I would walk Republicans if you can too.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people in it's a very conservative area, and there's a lot of people I've talked to that live in that area that are pretty upset with him for breaking that pledge. So.
Yeah, I agree with
I
that.
wish you luck. I'm just saying, just make work, because you're going to need to.
I appreciate it.
Because John's one of the hardest campaigners I know.
Yeah. One person that reached out to me who was a former assemblyman, Andrew Martin, has talked to me, and he's, pledged to help me out in whatever ways he can for the campaign. So he's been very helpful. One of my best friends in New York, his father is a assistant speaker for the New York Assembly, and I've spoken with other prominent politicians here in town. So I think in terms of advisory, I've got a lot of support, and it's just about making it happen and executing.
Well, one of the things I want to talk about real fast, because we run out of time.
Yeah.
I want to know what your views are on education in this state, because I'm telling you that is a sore spot.
Absolutely.
So, do you have any ideas around it, any plans around it, how to fund it, anything?
Yeah.
Just anything, because I think we have like a minute left.
Sure. Yeah. So, there's a lot of things happening with education right now. The thing that we all agree on is that absolutely we need to do more, we need to do better, and that's going to need sort of all hands on deck in the right way. I am a supporter of looking at what are our most successful and out-of-the-box kind of innovative programs that have shown to make the biggest gains without necessarily the biggest investment of money. And if some of those programs mean getting more parents involved in schools, more businesses involved in schools, that's the kind of thing that we need, because half of the problem is that people aren't really connected to the schools, to the communities, or understanding the problems that educators face because they haven't spoken with enough teachers. And that includes teachers that work in both charter schools and public schools. I think we need everyone on board, and the more transparency and communication we can have, the easier it's going to be to solve our problems. One of the biggest ways that I've been supporting schools in town is through supporting a school garden program called Green Our Planet. And that program, what they do is they connect a sponsor company to a school, and through that funding they're able to fund the program, and they've written a curriculum so that the kids are actually teaching or learning project-based systems outside, so their science and English and math are actually all about the things that they're doing hands-on, and at the same time they're learning about education, nutrition, and it's really powerful.
Owen, I like it. Thank you for coming on the program. Could you give out your point of contact?
Point of contact, yeah, so you can contact me at elect@owencarver.com. The website obviously is owencarver.com, and my cell phone is 702-625-3855, and I encourage anybody to contact me. Not enough people do.
That's Owen Carver, candidate for Nevada State Assembly District number 2. But we had some very disturbing news that came on, and I'm going to let Melody Howard just say what the news is.
I told you this morning that somebody I knew died. I'm really sad to tell people that Judge Susan Scan died this morning.
Wow.
And I can't.
Folks, our thoughts and prayers go to Clark County District Court Judge Susan Scan, who we have known for many years, and we have supported being on the bench at the 8th Judicial Clark County District Court. So memories, and to Susan Scan, she was an excellent judge, and may her spirit live on, and whoever managed to fulfill that seat is going to have some big shoes to fill. With that said, this is Steve Sampson, Jim Jonas, and Troy Warren with Veterans in Politics, and that was Owen Carver. Until next week.